We got psychology. I'm gonna be studying the brain, why it works the way it does, and why we're so weird. All right. Today we're gonna be looking over chapter 9.3, stages of development. Learning objectives. By the end of this section, you will be able to describe the stages of prenatal development and recognize the importance of prenatal care. Appraise physical, cognitive, and emotional development that occurs from infancy through childhood. Compare and contrast physical, cognitive, and emotional development that occurs during adolescence. Examine examine physical, cognitive, and emotional development that occurs in adulthood. From the moment we are born until the moment we die, until we perish into oblivion, we continue to develop. As discussed at the beginning of this chapter, developmental psychologists often divide our development into three areas: physical development, cognitive development, and psychosocial development. Mirroring Erickson's stages, lifespan development is divided into different stages that are based on age. We will discuss prenatal, infant, child, adolescent, and adult development. Prenatal development. How did you become to be who you, or how did you come to be who you are? From the beginning, as a one cell structure, to your birth, your prenatal development occurred in an orderly and delicate sequence. There are three stages of prenatal development: germinal, embryonic, and fetal. Let's take a look at what happens to the developing baby in each of these stages. The germinal stage, weeks 1 to 2. In the discussion of biopsychology earlier in the book, you learned about genetics and DNA. DNA is passed on to the child at the moment of conception. Conception occurs when the sperm fertilizes an egg and forms a zygote. A zygote begins as a one cell structure that is created when a sperm and egg merge. The genetic makeup and sex of the zygote are set at this point. During the first week after conception, the zygote divides and multiplies, going from a one cell structure to 2 cells, then 4 cells, then 8 cells, and so on. This process of cell division is called mitosis. Mitosis is a fragile process, and fewer than one half of all zygotes survive beyond the first 2 weeks. After 5 days of mitosis, there are 100 cells. After 9 months, there are billions of cells. As the cells divide, they become more specialized, forming different organs and body parts. In the germinal stage, the mass of cells has yet to attach itself to the lining of the uterus. Once it does, the next stage begins. Figure 9.7, we have a photo here of the sperm and ovum fusing at the point of conception. Little sperm eggs touching the ovum. Aw, how adorable. Embryonic stage, weeks 3 to 8. After the zygote divides for about 7 to 10 days and has 150 cells, it travels down the fallopian tubes and implants itself in the lining of the uterus. Upon implantation, the multicellular organism is called an embryo. Now, blood vessels grow, forming the placenta. The placenta is a structure connected to the uterus that provides nourishment and oxygen to the developing embryo via the umbilical cord. Basic structures of the embryo start to develop into areas that will become the head, chest, and abdomen. During the embryonic stage, the heart begins to beat and organs form and begin to function. The neural tube forms along the back of the embryo, developing into the spinal cord and brain. Interesting. Fetal stage, weeks 9 through 40. Whoa, wrong way. When the organism is about 9 weeks old, the embryo is called a fetus. At this stage, the fetus is about the size of a kidney bean and begins to take on the recognizable form of a human being as the tail begins to disappear. From 9 to 12 weeks, the sex organs begin to differentiate. At about 16 weeks, the fetus is approximately 4.5 inches long. Fingers and toes are fully developed, and fingerprints are visible. By the time the fetus reaches the 6th month of development, in other words, 24 weeks, it weighs up to 1.4 pounds. Hearing has developed, so the fetus can respond to sounds. The internal organs, such as the lungs, heart, stomach, and intestines, have formed enough that a fetus born prematurely at this point has a chance to survive outside the womb. Throughout the fetal stage, the brain continues to grow and develop. nearly doubling in size from week 16 to 28. In around 36 weeks, the fetus is almost ready for birth. It weighs about 6 pounds and is about 18.5 inches long. And by weeks 37, all of the fetus's organ systems are developed enough that it could survive outside the uterus without many risks associated with premature birth. The fetus continues to gain weight and grow in length until approximately 40 weeks. By then, the fetus has very little room to move and the birth becomes imminent. I am inevitable. The progression through the stages is shown in figure 9.8. So we got at 9 weeks, the fetal stage begins. 12 weeks, sex organs differentiate. At 16 weeks, we develop fingers and toes. At 20 weeks, hearing begins. We can hear stuff. I hear your voice. Call to me, Mama. I can hear you, Papa. At 24 weeks, lungs begin to develop. At 28 weeks, the brain grows rapidly. 32 weeks, bones fully develop. 36 weeks, muscles fully develop. And at 40 weeks, there's full-term development. Figure 9.8, during the fetal stage, the baby's brain develops and the body adds size and weight until the fetus reaches full-term development. Prenatal influences. During each prenatal stage, genetic and environmental factors can affect development. The developing fetus is completely dependent on the person carrying it. Routine prenatal care, which is medical care during pregnancy that monitors the health of both the pregnant person and the fetus, is important because it can reduce the risk of complications during pregnancy. In fact, people who are trying to become pregnant or who may become pregnant should discuss pregnancy planning with their doctor. They may be advised, for example, to take a vitamin containing folic acid, which helps prevent certain birth defects, or to monitor aspects of their diet or exercise routines. People can face health risks without prenatal care, which is not provided equitably across populations or locations. Yeah, that's unfortunate. We can fix that. Figure 9.9. A pregnant person receives an ultrasound as part of their prenatal care. Yay! Good for you. Recall that when a zygote attaches to the wall of the uterus, the placenta is formed. The placenta provides nourishment and oxygen to the fetus. I wonder if even if you grow as an adult, can you still like put a cord in through your belly button and like have like oxygen given to you through that? Like say like my idea for the like nourishment injections or pads or whatever, just have like something like right here, right over your belly button that sucks in oxygen for you. And like basically you can just inject food through there or like nourishments through there. You don't have to eat. Just instead of sitting down for like half an hour for lunch, just good to go. Get that juice, that fuel. Anyway, I got off track. What was I saying? Nourishment and oxygen to the fetus, the placenta. Okay. Most everything a pregnant person ingests, including food, liquid, and even medication, travels through the placenta to the fetus, hence the common phrase, eating for two. Everything in the environment affects the fetus. If they are exposed to something harmful, the child can show lifelong effects. Ugh. A teratogen, teratogen is any environmental agent, biological, chemical, or physical, that causes damage to the developing embryo or fetus. There are different types of teratogens. Alcohol and most drugs cross the placenta and affect the fetus. Alcohol is not safe to drink in any amount during pregnancy. Alcohol use during pregnancy has been found to be the leading preventable cause of intellectual disabilities in children in the United States. Excessive drinking while pregnant can cause fetal alcohol spectrum disorders with lifelong consequences for the child, ranging in severity from minor to major. Fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, or FASD, are a collection of birth defects associated with heavy consumption of alcohol during pregnancy. Physically, children with FASD may have a small head size and abnormal facial features. Cognitively, these children may have poor judgment, poor impulse control, higher rates of ADHD, learning issues, and lower IQ scores. These developmental problems and delays persist into adulthood. Based on studies conducted on animals, it has also been suggested that alcohol consumption during pregnancy may predispose offspring to like alcohol. Huh. Making an alcoholic since you've been in the womb, man. Shit. That's when you had your first drink. You're still in the placenta. You're still a little fetus. Oops. Fetal alcohol syndrome facial features. We have different facial features and potential effects of fetal alcohol syndrome. So we have head size. They can be below average head circumference. The eyes can be smaller than average, have a smaller than average eye opening, skin folds at the corners of the eyes. Hmm. Their nose can have a low nasal bridge and short nose. Mid face, smaller than average mid face size. Okay. And lip and philtrum, thin upper lips and indistinct philtrum. Philtrum is, but something around here, something orally. Okay. Smoking is also considered a teratogen because nicotine travels through the placenta to the fetus. When the pregnant person smokes, the developing baby experiences a reduction in blood oxygen levels, according to Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC. Smoking while pregnant can result in premature birth, low birth weight infants, stillbirth, and sudden infant death syndrome, or SIDS. Heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, almost all prescription medicines, and most over the counter medications are also considered teratogens. Babies born with a heroin addiction need heroin just like an adult with a heroin addiction. Ugh. The child will need to be gradually weaned from the heroin under medical supervision, otherwise, the child could have seizures and die. Other teratogens, including radiation, viruses such as HIV and herpes, and rubella, or German measles. Uh, People who were raised in the United States are much less likely to be afflicted with rubella because most receive childhood immunizations or vaccinations that protect the body from disease. Each organ of the fetus develops during a specific period in the pregnancy called the critical or sensitive period. For example, research with primate models of FASD has demonstrated that the time during which a developing fetus is exposed to alcohol can dramatically affect the appearance of facial features or facial characteristics associated with fetal alcohol syndrome. Specifically, this research suggests that alcohol exposure that is limited to day 19 or 20 of gestation can lead to significant facial abnormalities in the offspring. Given regions of the brain also show sensitive periods during which they are most susceptible to the teratogenic effects of alcohol. So, what do you think? Should people who use drugs during pregnancy be arrested and jailed? As you now know, people who use drugs and alcohol during pregnancy can cause serious lifelong harm to their child. Some have advocated mandatory screenings for pregnant people who have a history of problematic drug use, and if they continue using, to arrest, prosecute, and incarcerate them. For example, in the 1990s, South Carolina implemented such a fetal protection law called the Interagency Policy on Management of Substance Abuse During Pregnancy, which had disastrous results. The interagency policy applied to patients attending the obstetrics clinic at MUSC, which primarily serves patients who are indigent or on Medicaid. It did not apply to private obstetrical patients. The policy required patient education about the harmful effects of substance abuse during pregnancy. A statement also warned patients that protection of unborn and newborn children from the harms of illegal drug abuse could involve the Charleston Police, the Solicitor of the Ninth Judicial Court, and the Protective Services Division of the Department of Social Services, or DSS. As with similar laws, this policy seemed to deter pregnant people from seeking prenatal care, deterred them from seeking other social services, and was applied solely to people with low incomes, resulting in lawsuits. The program was canceled after 5 years, during which 42 women were arrested. A federal agency later determined that the program involved human experimentation without the approval and oversight of an Institutional Review Board, or IRB. Many states, including Massachusetts, Florida, California, Illinois, and Utah, have mandatory reporting laws that require healthcare providers to inform Child Protective Services when they suspect that a fetus or infant is exposed to drugs of abuse. Even though prosecutions are rarely pursued in these states, pregnant people still report reluctance to seek care for either their pregnancy or their substance abuse and make efforts to hide both from providers. What were the flaws in these programs, and how could states and healthcare providers improve them? And what are the ethical implications of charging pregnant people with child abuse? Yeah, well, first of all, the parent is not going to be there because you're arresting them. And you're basically giving up the child to orphanages or somebody else or foster care that's going to take care of them. And you're you're deterring people from wanting to seek prenatal care just because people don't want to be arrested, and people who actually do need the care, they're not getting the care because they don't want to get arrested. And so since they don't get the care, their pregnancy may not go as well. The child may have deficiencies after they're born, or they might not be born at all and they might die. So, yeah, we don't want to deter them from seeking prenatal care. No arresting them. Yeah, no arresting people. Just more education. Let's say high school. So it should be like freshman or sophomore year of high school. So like freshman year could be like safe sex. Sophomore year could be like prenatal development. Junior year, taking care of the child. And then senior year, like managing finances for the family, investing. Anyway, infancy through childhood. The average newborn weighs approximately 7.5 pounds. Although small, newborns are not completely helpless because their free reflexes and sensory capabilities help them interact with the environment from the moment of birth. All healthy babies are born with newborn reflexes, inborn automatic responses to particular forms of stimulation. Reflexes help the newborn survive until it is capable of more complex behaviors. These reflexes are crucial to survival. They are present in babies whose brains are developing normally and usually disappear around 4 to 5 months old. Let's take a look at some of these newborn reflexes. The rooting reflex is the newborn's response to anything that touches their cheek. When you stroke a baby's cheek, the baby naturally turns the head in that direction and begins to suck. Okay. The sucking reflex is the automatic, unlearned sucking motions that infants do with their mouths. Several other interesting newborn reflexes can be observed. For instance, if you put your finger into a newborn's hand, you will witness the grasping reflex, which is a baby automatically grasps anything that touches the palms. The Moro reflex is the newborn's response to the sensation of falling. The baby spreads the arms, pulls them back in, and then usually cries. How do you think these reflexes promote survival in the first months of life? Well, the sucking thing to get nutrients from the mom. The grasping thing, maybe to like cling on to parents if they're being reached for. Maybe you just need this extra set of hands. Be like, here, kid, hold this stick. I was like, got it. I don't know. What can young infants see, hear, and smell? Newborn infants' sensory abilities are significant, but their senses are not yet fully developed. Many of a newborn's innate preferences facilitate interaction with caregivers and other humans. Although vision is their least developed sense, newborns already show preference for faces. Babies who are just a few days old also prefer human voices. They will listen to voices longer than sounds that do not involve speech, and they seem to prefer their mother's voice over a stranger's voice. In an interesting experiment, 3-week-old babies were given pacifiers that played a recording of the infant mother's voice and of a stranger's voice. When the infants heard their mother's voice, they sucked more strongly at the pacifier. Newborns also have a strong sense of smell. For instance, newborn babies can distinguish the smell of their own mother from that of others. In a study by McFarlane in 1978, 1 week old babies who were being breastfed were placed between two gauze pads. One gauze pad was from the bra of a nursing mother who was a stranger, and the other gauze pad was from the bra of the infant's own mother. More than two-thirds of the week-old babies turned toward the gauze pad with their mother's scent. Physical development. In infancy, toddlerhood, and early childhood, the body's physical development is rapid. On average, newborns weigh between 5 and 10 pounds, and a newborn's weight typically doubles in 6 months and triples in 1 year. By 2 years old, the weight will have quadrupled, so we can expect that a 2-year-old should weigh between 20 and 40 pounds. The average length of a newborn is 19.5 inches, increasing from 29.5 inches. Shit! You guys, you ladies are pushing that shit out of you? Fuck. Oh, man. Bless you. Bless you. God almighty. Oh, 19.5 inches. Hopefully it's not coming out sideways. Increasing to 29.5 inches by 12 months and 34.4 inches by 2 years old. Figure 9.10. Children experience rapid physical changes through infancy and early childhood. During infancy and childhood, growth does not occur at a steady rate. Growth slows between 4 and 6 years old. During this time, children gain 5 to 7 pounds and grow about 2 to 3 inches per year. Once females reach 8 to 9 years old, their growth rate outpaces that of males due to a pubertal growth spurt. This growth spurt continues until around 12 years old, coinciding with the start of the menstrual cycle. By 10 years old, the average female weighs 88 pounds and the average male weighs 85 pounds. It was previously believed that we are born with all the brain cells we will ever have. More recent research suggests that neurogenesis, the formation of neurons, can continue through adulthood. However, the vast majority of neural connections and pathways occur during the first few years of a child's life. This period of rapid neural growth is called blooming. Neural pathways continue to develop through puberty. The blooming period of neural growth is then followed by a period of pruning, where neural connections are reduced. It is thought that pruning causes the brain to function more efficiently, allowing for mastery of more complex skills. Blooming occurs during the first few years of life, and pruning continues through childhood and into adolescence in various areas of the brain. The size of our brains increases rapidly. For example, the brain of a 2-year-old is 55% of its adult size, and by 6 years old, the brain is about 90% of its adult size. Darn. During early childhood, ages 3 to 6, the frontal lobes grow rapidly. Recalling our discussion of the 4 lobes of the brain earlier in this book, the frontal lobes are associated with planning, reasoning, memory, and impulse control. Therefore, by the time children reach school age, they are developmentally capable of controlling their attention and behavior. Through the elementary school years, the frontal, temporal, occipital, and parietal lobes all grow in size. The brain growth spurts experienced in childhood tend to follow Piaget's sequence of cognitive development, so that significant changes in neural functioning account for cognitive advances. All right. Motor development occurs in an orderly sequence as infants move from reflexive reactions to more advanced motor functioning. For instance, babies first learn to hold their heads up, then to sit with assistance, then to sit unassisted, followed later by crawling and then walking. Motor skills refer to our ability to move our bodies and manipulate objects. Fine motor skills focus on the muscles in our fingers, toes, and eyes and enable coordination of small actions. For example, grasping a toy, writing with a pencil, and using a spoon. Gross motor skills focus on large muscle groups that control our arms and legs and involve larger movements. Balancing, running, for example, balancing, running, and jumping. Awesome. As motor skills develop, there are certain developmental milestones that young children should achieve. For each milestone, there is an average age as well as a range of ages in which the milestone should be reached. An example of a developmental milestone is sitting. On average, most babies sit alone at 7 months old. Sitting involves both coordination and muscle strength, and 90% of babies achieve this milestone between 5 and 9 months old. In another example, babies on average are able to hold up their head at 6 weeks old, and 90% of babies achieve this between 3 weeks and 4 months old. If a baby is not holding up their head by 4 months old, they're showing a delay. If the child is displaying delays on several milestones, that is reason for concern, and the parent or caregiver should discuss this with the child's pediatrician. Some developmental delays can be identified and addressed through early intervention. Develop milestones for ages 2 through 5. So at age 2, a physical milestone is able to kick a ball and walk up and down stairs. At 2, for personal and social milestones, they should be able to play alongside other children and copy adult behavior or mimic behaviors. For language, they should be able to point to objects when named and put a 2 to 4 word sentence together. For cognitive milestones, they should be able to sort shapes and colors and follow two-step instructions. At age 3, children should typically be able to climb and run or pedal a tricycle. At age 3, they should also be able to take turns, express many emotions, and dress oneself relatively. They don't have to match, but just put clothes on. Know where the pants go, know where the shirts go, stuff like that. Language, they should be able to name familiar things and use pronouns like his, her, they, them, apparently now. Cognitive, they should be able to play make believe and work with toys. With various parts such as levers and handles. At age 4, they should be able to catch balls or use scissors. They should prefer social play to solo play and understand various likes and interests for themselves and others. Language milestone at age 4, they should be able to know songs and rhymes by memory. Some. Cognitive milestone at age 4 is to understand names, colors, and numbers, and should be able to begin writing letters. At age 5, they should be able to hop and swing, should know how to use a fork and spoon. Personal and social milestone at age 5, they should be able to distinguish real from pretend, and they should like to please friends. Little quid pro quo action, understand transactional social interaction. For language, they should be able to speak clearly and use full sentences. And at age 5, the cognitive milestone is to count to 10 or higher and print some letters and copies of basic shapes. Nice. Cognitive development. In addition to rapid physical growth, young children also exhibit significant development of their cognitive abilities. Piaget thought that children's ability to understand objects, such as learning that a rattle makes a noise when shaken, was a cognitive skill that develops slowly as a child matures and interacts with the environment. Today, developmental psychologists like Piaget think Piaget was incorrect. Researchers have found that even very young children understand objects and how they work long before they have experience with those objects. For example, children as young as 3 months old demonstrated knowledge of the properties of objects that they had only viewed and did not have prior experience with them. In one study, a 3-month old infants were shown a truck rolling down a track and behind a screen. The box, which appeared solid but was actually hollow, was placed next to the track. The truck rolled past the box, as would be expected. Then the box was placed on the track to block the path of the truck. When the truck was rolled down the track this time, it continued unimpeded. The infants spent significantly more time looking at this impossible event. Baillargeon in 1987 concluded that they knew solid objects cannot pass through each other. Belargion's findings suggest that very young children have an understanding of objects and how they work, which Piaget in 1954 would have said is beyond their cognitive abilities due to their limited experiences in the world. Nice. All right, figure 9.11. In Belargion's study, infants observed a truck roll down an unobstructed track, then roll down an unobstructed track with an obstruction beside it, and then roll down and pass through what appeared to be an obstruction that was hollowed out so the truck could pass through. Just as there are physical milestones that we expect children to reach, there are also cognitive milestones. It is helpful to be aware of these milestones as children gain new abilities to think, problem solve, and communicate. For example, infants shake their head no around 6 to 9 months, and they respond to verbal requests to do things like wave bye bye or blow a kiss around 9 to 12 months. Remember Piaget's ideas about object permanence? We can expect children to grasp the concept that objects continue to exist even when they are not in sight by around 8 months old, because toddlers, in other words, 12 to 24 months old, have mastered object permanence. They enjoy games like hide and seek, and they realize that when someone leaves the room, they will come back. Toddlers also point to pictures in books and look in appropriate places when you ask them to find objects. Preschool age children, 3 to 5 years old, also make steady progress in cognitive development. Not only can they count, name colors, and tell you their name and age, but they can also make some decisions on their own, such as choosing an outfit to wear. Preschool age children understand basic time concepts and sequencing, for example, before and after, and they can predict what will happen next in a story. They can also begin to enjoy the use of humor in stories because they can think symbolically. They enjoy pretend play and inventing elaborate characters and scenarios. One of the most common examples of their cognitive growth is their blossoming curiosity. Preschool age children love to ask, why? 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 Mine? Mine? ¿Por qué? An important cognitive change occurs in children this age. Recall that Piaget described 2 to 3 year olds as egocentric, meaning they do not have an awareness of others' points of view. Between 3 and 5 years old, children come to understand that people have thoughts, feelings, and beliefs that are different from their own. This is known as theory of mind or TOM. Children can use this skill to tease others, persuade their parents to purchase a candy bar, or understand why a sibling might be angry. When children develop TOM, or theory of mind, they can recognize that others have false beliefs. All right. Cognitive skills continue to expand in middle and late childhood from 6 to 11 years old. Thought processes become more logical and organized when dealing with concrete information. Children at this age understand concepts such as the past, present, and future, giving them the ability to plan and work toward goals. Additionally, they can process complex ideas such as addition and subtraction and cause and effect relationships. However, children's attention spans tend to be very limited until they are around 11 years old. After that point, it begins to improve through adulthood. Figure 9.12, because they understand luck and fairness, children in middle and late childhood from 6 to 11 years old are able to follow rules for games. One real well-researched aspect of cognitive development is language acquisition. As mentioned earlier, the order in which children learn language structures is consistent across children and cultures. You've also learned that some psychological researchers have proposed that children possess a biological predisposition for language acquisition. Starting before birth, babies begin to develop language and communication skills. At birth, babies apparently recognize their mother's voice and can discriminate between the languages spoken by their mothers and foreign languages, and they show preferences for faces that are moving in synchrony with audible language. Children communicate information through gesturing long before they speak, and there is some evidence that gesture usage predicts subsequent language development. In terms of producing spoken language, babies begin to coo almost immediately. Cooing is a one syllable combination of a consonant and a vowel sound. For example, coo or ba. Interestingly, interestingly, babies replicate sounds from their own languages. A baby whose parents speak French will coo in a different tone than a baby whose parents speak Spanish or Urdu. After cooing, the baby starts to babble. Babbling begins with repeating a syllable such as mama, dada, or baba. When babies are about 12 months old, we can expect them to say their first word for meaning and start combining words for meaning at about 18 months. At about 2 years old, a toddler uses between 50 to 200 words. By 3 years old, they have a vocabulary of up to 1,000 words and can speak in sentences. During the early childhood years, children's vocabulary increases at a rapid pace. This is sometimes referred to as the vocabulary spurt and has been claimed to involve an expansion in vocabulary at a rate of 10 to 20 new words per week. Recent research may indicate that while some children experience these spurts, it is far from universal. It has been estimated that 5-year-olds can understand about 6,000 words, speak 2,000 words, and uh, can define words and question their meanings. They can rhyme and name the days of the week. 7-year-olds speak fluently and use slang and cliches. What accounts for such dramatic language learning by children? Behaviorist B.F. Skinner thought that we learn language in response to reinforcement or feedback, such as through parental approval or through being understood. For example, when a 2-year-old asks for juice, he might say, "Me, juice," to which his mother might respond by giving him a cup of apple juice. Noam Chomsky in 1957 criticized Skinner's theory and proposed that we are all born with an innate capacity to learn language. Chomsky called this mechanism a language acquisition device, or LAD. Who is correct? Both Chomsky and Skinner are right. Remember that we are a product of both nature and nurture. Researchers now believe that language acquisition is partially inborn and partially learned through our interactions with our linguistic environment. Attachment. Psychosocial development occurs as children form relationships, interact with others, and understand and manage their feelings. In social and emotional development, forming healthy attachments is very important and is the major social milestone of infancy. Attachment is a strong standing connection or bond with others. Developmental psychologists are interested in how infants reach this milestone. They ask such questions as how do parent and infant attachment bonds form? How does neglect affect these bonds? And what accounts for children's attachment differences? Researchers Harry Harlow, John Bowlby, and Mary Ainsworth conducted studies designed to answer these questions. In the 1950s, Harlow conducted a series of experiments on monkeys. He separated newborn monkeys from their mothers. Each monkey was presented with two surrogate mothers. One surrogate monkey was made out of wire mesh and she could dispense milk. The other monkey was softer and made from cloth. This monkey did not dispense milk. Researchers shows that the monkeys preferred the soft, cuddly cloth monkey even though she did not provide any nourishment. The baby monkeys spent their time clinging to the cloth monkey and only went to the wire monkey when they needed to be fed. Prior to the study, the medical and scientific communities generally thought that babies become attached to the people who provide their nourishment. However, Harlow in 1958 concluded that there was more to the mother child bond than nourishment. Feelings of comfort and security are the critical components to maternal infant bonding, which leads to healthy psychosocial development. Building on the work of Harlow and others, John Bowlby developed the concept of attachment theory. He defined attachment as the affectional bond or tie that an infant forms with the mother. An infant must form this bond with a primary caregiver in order to have normal social and emotional development. In addition, Bowlby proposed that this attachment bond is very powerful and continues throughout life. He used the concept of secure base to define a healthy attachment between parent and child in 1988. A secure base is a parental presence that gives the child a sense of safety as he explores his surroundings. Bowlby said that two things are needed for a healthy attachment. The caregiver must be responsive to the child's physical, social, and emotional needs, and the caregiver and child must engage in mutually enjoyable interactions. Figure 9.13, a mutually enjoyable interaction with parent and infant can promote the parent-infant bond. Look at that, this cute daughter. Dad's playing with his daughter. While Bowlby thought attachment was an all or nothing process, Mary Ainsworth in 1970 Mary Ainsworth's research in the 1970s showed otherwise. Ainsworth wanted to know if children differ in the ways they bond, and if so, why. To find the answers, she used the strange situation procedure to study attachment between mothers and their infants. In the strange situation, the mother or primary caregiver and the infant, aged 12 to 18 months, are placed in a room together. There are toys in the room, and the caregiver and child spend some time alone in the room. After the child has had some time to explore her surroundings, a stranger enters the room, and the mother then leaves her baby with the stranger. After a few minutes, she returns to comfort her child. Based on how the infants and toddlers responded to the separation and reunion, Ainsworth identified three types of parent-child attachments: secure, avoidant, and resistant. A fourth style, known as disorganized attachment, was later described. The most common type of attachment, also considered the healthiest, is called secure attachment. In this type of attachment, the toddler prefers his parent over a stranger. The attachment figure is used as a secure base to explore the environment and is sought out in times of stress. Securely attached children were distressed when their caregivers left the room in the strange situation experiment, but when their caregivers return, these securely attached children are happy to see them. Securely attached children have caregivers who are sensitive and responsive to their needs. Figure 9.14, in secure attachment, the parent provides a secure base for the toddler, allowing him to securely explore his environment. Avoidant attachment, the child is unresponsive to the parent, does not use the parent as a secure base, and does not care if the parent leaves. The toddler reacts to the parent the same way she reacts to a stranger. When the parent does return, the child is slow to show a positive reaction. Ainsworth theorized that these children were most likely to have a caregiver who was insensitive and inattentive to their needs. In cases of resistant attachment, children tend to show clingy behavior, but then they reject the attachment figure's attempts to interact with them. These children do not explore the toys in the room as they are too fearful. During separation in the strange situation, they became extremely disturbed and angry with the parent. When the parent returns, the children are difficult to comfort. Resistant attachment is the result of the caregiver's inconsistent level of response to their child. Finally, children with disorganized attachment behaved oddly in the strange situation. They freeze, run around the room in an erratic manner, or try to run away when the caregiver returns. This type of attachment is seen most often in kids who have been abused. Research has shown that abuse disrupts a child's ability to regulate their emotions. While Ainsworth research has found support in subsequent studies, it also has met criticism. Some researchers have pointed out that a child's temperament may have a strong influence on attachment, and others have noted that attachment varies from culture to culture, a factor not accounted for in Ainsworth's research. All right, which more do we have? Yeah, all right, it's a longer section. All right. Jeez. Going 43 minutes. I could do up to an hour. That's fine. I'll do an hour. 43 minutes. 17 minutes. Like 15. That works. Self-concept. Just as attachment is the main psychosocial milestone of infancy, the primary psychosocial milestone of childhood is the development of a positive sense of self. How does self-awareness develop? Infants don't have a self-concept, which is an understanding of who they are. If you place a baby in front of a mirror, they will reach out to touch their image thinking it's another baby. It's a me. However, by about 18 months, the toddler will recognize that the person in the mirror is themselves. How do we know this? In a well known experiment, a researcher placed a red dot of paint on the children's noses before putting them in front of a mirror. This was conducted in Amsterdam, 1972, commonly known as the mirror test. This behavior is demonstrated by humans and a few other species and is considered evidence of self recognition. At 18 months old, they will touch their own noses when they saw the paint, surprised to see a spot on their faces. By 24 to 36 months, um, children can name and or point to themselves in pictures, clearly indicating self-recognition. Children from 2 to 4 years old display a great increase in social behavior once they've established a self-concept. They enjoy playing with other children, but they have difficulty sharing their possessions. Also, through play, children explore and come to understand their gender roles and can label themselves as a girl or a boy. By 4 years old, children can cooperate with other children, share when asked, and separate from parents with little anxiety. Children at this age also exhibit autonomy, initiate tasks, and carry out plans. Success in these areas contributes to the positive sense of self. Once children reach 6 years old, they can identify themselves in terms of group memberships. I am a first grader. School age children compare themselves to their peers and discover that they are competent in some areas and less so in others. Competent in some areas and less so in others. At this age, children recognize their own personality traits as well as some other traits they would like to have. For example, 10-year-old Layla says, I'm kind of shy. I wish I could be more talkative like my friend Alexa. Development of a positive self concept is important to healthy development. Children with a positive self concept tend to be more confident, do better in school, and act more independently and are more willing to try new activities. Formation of a positive self concept begins in Erickson's toddlerhood stage when children establish autonomy and become confident in their abilities. Development of self concept continues in elementary school when children compare themselves to others. When the comparison is favorable, children feel a sense of competence and are motivated to work harder and accomplish more. Self concept is reevaluated in Erickson's adolescent stage as teens form an identity. They internalize the messages they have received regarding their strengths and weaknesses, developing some messages and rejecting others. Adolescents who have achieved identity formation are capable of contributing positively to society. Digging deeper, phenomenological variant in ecological systems theory, or PVEST, PVEST. Kenneth and Mamie Clark were pioneering psychologists responsible for the first psychological study used in a Supreme Court case. Their research with African American children and adult choices was used to highlight the harmful effects of segregation and provided support for the Browns and the NAACP in their lawsuit against the Board of Education. The finding that African American children were more likely to choose a white doll or a black doll in both northern and southern states led them to theorize that the children did not have a healthy concept of themselves. Oh, god damn, that's sad. That's so sad. Oh man. Oh, I've like vaguely heard of this before. All right, delving deeper. The Clark's research differed from that of Inez Beverly Prosser, who also studied African American children in segregated and integrated schools in Cincinnati. Parents could choose either environment for their children during the 1930s. She found, among the other factors, that the self concept of children at segregated schools was more positive versus those in integrated schools, partly due to teachers' low expectations. Hmm. Prosser also noted that the child's personality should be considered when choosing a segregated school or an integrated school. Later researchers suggested that African American children choosing a doll that did not look like them was not an indication of their self esteem or their self image. For instance, Rogers and Meltzoff in 2017 found that gender identity was more important than race in their study of diverse children whose average age was about 10 years old. Thus, for children that young, the meaning of race is an evolving process as opposed to adolescents' search for identity. The ethnic minority children in the study did view racial identity as important compared to their white counterparts. For teenagers who are members of ethnic minority groups, racial, ethnic, cultural identity can be paramount depending on the family's processes. Racial socialization involves teaching them the positive aspects of their in-group, usually by caregivers. Most of the students in a study by Neblett, Smalls, Ford, Nugent, and Sellers in 2009 reported having received such messages, but a few received no racial socialization messages. They found that these messages played a role in how they felt about their in-group. Some theories have been developed to explain the behaviors of ethnic minority youth. One such theory is the phenomenological variant of ecological systems theory, or PVEST, put forth by Margaret Beale Spencer. This is a merging of phenomenology, and Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory. A phenomenological approach is based on how a person makes meaning of their experiences. For example, young African American boys have different experiences in educational settings compared to African American girls. Consequently, the meaning they assign to those experiences differs. Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory suggests that development occurs based on interactions among environments such as school, family, and community. The research that Spencer, Dupree, and Hartman in 1997 conducted with African American adolescent boys and girls was explained by PVEST. They found that negative learning attitudes were predicted by unpopularity with peers for girls and boys. Additionally, for boys, more stress predicted a less negative attitude toward learning, possibly due to possibly due to focus on the school environment instead of on personal issues. This occurred along with perceiving that teachers had positive expectations of African American boys. The researchers surmised that PVEST accounted for how others' perceptions and their subsequent attitudes were related and worked both ways. Oh man. Kind of get to that point when I'm reading, kind of like zone out a little bit. Is there timing here? I think I can read. I'll read like one more section. We're learning. Fuck yeah, dude. Get smarter. Big brains. What can parents do to nurture a healthy self concept? Diana Baumrind in 1971 and 1991 proposed that parenting style may be a factor. The way we parent is an important factor in the childhood's socio emotional growth. Baumrind developed and refined a theory describing four parenting styles: authoritative, authoritarian, permissive, and uninvolved. With the authoritative lifestyle, or oh my god, no, no. With the authoritative style, the parent gives reasonable demands and consistent limits, expresses warmth and affection, and listens to the child's point of view. Parents set rules and explain the reasons behind them. They are also flexible and willing to make exceptions to the rules in certain cases. For example, temporarily relaxing bedtime rules to allow for a nighttime swim during a family vacation. One of the four parenting styles, the authoritative style, is the one that is most encouraged in modern American society. American children raised by authoritative parents then tend to have high self esteem and social skills. However, effective parenting styles vary as a function of culture, and as Small in 1999 points out, the authoritative style is not necessarily preferred or appropriate in all cultures. In authoritarian style, the parent places high value on conformity and obedience. My way or the highway. Ugh, hate that one. The parents are often strict, tightly monitor their children, and express little warmth. In contrast to the authoritative style, authoritarian parents probably would not relax bedtime rules during a vacation because they consider the rules to be set. Ugh, how lame. And they expect obedience. This family sucks. This style can create anxious, withdrawn, and unhappy kids, not to say more rebellious and spiteful. However, it is important to point out that authoritarian parenting is as beneficial as the authoritative style in some ethnic groups. For instance, first generation Chinese American children raised by authoritarian parents did just as well in school as their peers who were raised by authoritative parents. Okay, for parents who employ the permissive style in parenting, their kids run the show and anything goes. This one's also crap. Permissive parents make few demands and rarely use punishment. They tend to be very nurturing and loving and may play the role of friend rather than parent. Yeah. In terms of our example of vacation bedtimes, permissive parents might not have bedtime rules at all. Instead, they allow the child to choose their bedtime whether on vacation or not. Not surprisingly, children raised by permissive parents tend to lack self discipline, and the permissive parenting style is negatively associated with grades. Their permissive style, especially among female children, and increased display of disruptive behaviors by male children. Hold on. The permissive style may also contribute to other risky behaviors such as alcohol abuse, risky sexual behavior, especially among female children, and increased display of disruptive behaviors by male children. Okay, there we go. However, there are some positive outcomes associated with children raised by permissive parents. They tend to have higher self-esteem, better social skills. It's probably more cockiness, not confidence. Not competent, but you think you are. Better social skills and report lower levels of depression. Yeah. I guess that's good, but at the same time, like I'm imagining a lot of these people are like feeling entitled and feeling more pretentious and feeling that they deserve certain results when they don't actually deserve them. Yeah, I think this can breed entitlement and narcissism. In the uninvolved style of parenting, the parents are indifferent, uninvolved, and sometimes referred to as neglectful. You just ain't there. Went to go get some milk. They don't respond to the child's needs and make relatively few demands. This could be because of severe depression or substance abuse, other factors such as the parent's extreme focus on work. These parents may provide for the child's basic needs, but little else. The child raised by this parenting style are usually emotionally withdrawn, fearful, anxious, perform poorly in school, and are at an increased risk of substance abuse. Huh. Okay. As you can see, parenting styles influence adulthood. Oh my God. Nope. As you can see, parenting styles influence childhood adjustment, but could a child's temperament likewise influence parenting? Temperament refers to innate traits that influence how one thinks, behaves, and reacts with the environment. Children with easy temperaments demonstrate positive emotions, adapt well to change, and are capable of regulating their emotions. Okay. Conversely, children with difficult temperaments demonstrate negative emotions and have difficulty adapting to change and regulating their emotions. Difficult children are much more likely to challenge parents, teachers, and other caregivers. Therefore, it's possible that easy children, in other words, social, adaptable, and easy to soothe, tend to elicit warm and responsive parenting, while demanding, irritable, and withdrawn children evoke irritation in their parents or cause their parents to withdraw. Everyday connection. much more do I have actually? Quite a bit. All right, we'll do part two. Whoa, 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 whoa. All right, everyday connection. This is probably the last section we'll do for now. The importance of play and recess. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics in 2007, unstructured play is an integral part of a child's development. It builds creativity, problem solving skills, and social relationships. Play also allows children to develop a theory of mind as they imaginatively take on the perspective of others. Put myself in your shoes. Outdoor play allows children the opportunity to directly experience and sense the world around them. While doing so, they may collect objects they come across and develop lifelong interests and hobbies. They also benefit from increased exercise, and engaging in outdoor play can actually increase how much they enjoy physical activity. This helps support the development of a healthy heart and brain. Unfortunately, research suggests that today's children are engaging in less and less outdoor play. Perhaps it is no surprise to learn that lowered levels of physical activity, in conjunction with easy access to calorie dense foods with little nutritional value, are contributing to alarming levels of childhood obesity. Despite the adverse consequences associated with reduced play, some children are overscheduled and have little free time to engage in unstructured play. In addition, some schools have taken away recess time for children in a push for students to do better on standardized tests. Crap. That's crap. That's pure fucking bullshit. Take that away. Fuck your standardized tests. And many schools commonly use loss of recess as a form of punishment. Do you agree with these practices? Why or why not? Like, let them play, just put them in a different part of the recess area so they just can't play with their friends. Like, they can still play and still have like a sandbox or something. But you're just like kind of sequestered. I wouldn't take away the play. Don't take away recess. It's like literally the only good time in school for some kids. Because at that age, you don't understand why you're learning the shit. You just know, like, hey, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to go to school. I'm supposed to sit down and learn some fucking bullshit for some stupid ass fucking reason. But I get rewarded by recess, so fuck it. I get to see my friends. I got to play with my friends. So fine. I'll put up with this other academic fuckery. Yeah, nah. Positive reinforcement, not negative or positive punishment, negative punishment. No punishment, reinforcement. Within reason. All right. Leaving off on adolescence. All right, I'm gonna take a break for now. Either get something to eat or just kind of switch it up. All right, done an hour. We're good. We Gucci, baby.